Hola, estudiantes. This verb is to talk about how to conjugate verbs that are reflexive. Verbs that are reflexive mean that the subject both performs the action and it receives the action as well. And you'll know that a verb is reflexive because it uses a reflexive pronoun. So when you see the verb in the infinitive, you'll see a se, which is a reflexive pronoun attached on the end. For example, you'll see like levantarse, and that's your cue. Oh, this is a reflexive verb and you need to conjugate it as such. So all reflexive verbs have to use a reflexive pronoun at the beginning of when we conjugate it. And the reflexive pronouns for yo are me, for tú is te, for usted, él, and ella, se, for nosotros, nos, for vosotros, os, and for ellos, ellas, and ustedes, se. Let's conjugate some reflexive verbs as examples. For example, lavarse, which means to wash, and then the se part means to wash oneself. So this is when someone is washing oneself. Yo me lavo, tú te lavas, usted, él, ella se lava, nosotros nos lavamos, vosotros os laváis, ellos, ustedes se lavan. Now this is just when the person is washing themselves. So for example, I could say Juan se lava, Juan washes himself. I could also say Juan lava a su perro. Juan washes his dog. So this is Juan washing himself with a reflexive pronoun, and this is Juan washing something or someone else. Another verb that conjugates reflexively is levantarse. Levantarse means to get up. This could be to get up in the morning or even just rising up out of your chair. So yo me levanto, tú te levantas, usted, él, ella se levanta, nosotros nos levantamos, vosotros os levantáis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes se levantan. And one more verb that is a reflexive verb is acostarse. So verbs like acostarse are also stem changing. So just because a verb is reflexive doesn't mean that we don't also have to stem change. We'll still do the stem change. Acostarse means to go to bed or to lay down. So we still use our reflexive pronouns. Me, te, se, nos, os, and se. And this one happens to stem change. So we'll make sure to change the O to UE. Me acuesto, te acuestas, se acuesta. And ellos and ustedes se acuestan. So just like the last video, a boot verb that stem changes is still a boot verb, but outside of the boot, no change. Nos acostamos, os acostáis. Here's a few more examples of reflexive verbs. Mirarse. Mirarse means to look at oneself. So you can look at something else that would not be reflexive. Mirarse would mean like you're looking at yourself in your selfie camera or in the mirror. Yo me miro. I look at myself. Tú te miras. You look at yourself. Usted, él, ella se mira. Nosotros nos miramos. Vosotros os miráis. And ellos se miran. And this last column, this can mean like we look at ourselves or we look at each other. Y'all look at yourselves, y'all look at each other. They look at themselves or they look at each other. So they can be reflexive or also reciprocal, doing the activities to each other. The verb ponerse is a little different than poner. Poner is to put. Ponerse is to put on, like to put clothing on oneself. So if like I'm putting on a shirt, yo me pongo una camisa. So remember, the yo form is irregular, pongo, so it's still irregular when I'm doing this verb reflexively. The other ones are normal. Tú te pones, usted, él, ella se pone, nosotros nos ponemos, vosotros os ponéis, ellos se ponen. And the verb despertarse, this is also stem changer. E goes to IE. which is like to wake up or to, what first happens in the morning before you actually levantarse, you despertarse. So I wake up, me despierto, stem change E to IE, te despiertas, usted o ella se despierta, ellos se despiertan. So stem change inside the boot. Outside of the boot, no stem change. Nos despertamos, os despertáis. Here are a few other verbs that also can be reflexive. Llamarse. Llamar all by itself can mean to call, but llamarse is to call oneself. So you learned this a long time ago when you learned how to introduce yourself. You would say like, me llamo Señora Clark, or whatever your name is. And llamar by itself is just to call, like you can call somebody on the phone. Sentarse is to be seated. This is also a stem change, E to IE. Acostarse, to go to bed or to lay down. Stem change O to UE. Ducharse, to shower. Divertirse, to have fun. This one's a stem change, E to IE. And then cepillarse, to brush. Can be used with pelo for hair, or dientes if you're brushing your teeth. But just remember that a lot of these verbs also can be non-reflexive. For example, if I'm like brushing out my dog, I would just say cepillo al perro, I brush the dog, and that would not be reflexive. Me cepillo los dientes would be reflexive because I'm brushing my own teeth. So the whole point of reflexive verbs is to add a se on the end of the verb or another reflexive pronoun when you're conjugating it to say that the subject that's performing the action also is receiving the action. Eso es todo. Hasta luego.